This is Trinity Sunday, that's for sure. You can see that on your bulletin covers. And it's the Sunday that many times we celebrate and talk about Trinity. We've done that in the past, but I'm going to treat this as, instead of the Trinity Sunday, as simply the second Sunday after Pentecost. Or actually the first Sunday after Pentecost, sorry about that. Second Sunday in Pentecost, the first Sunday after Pentecost. If you recall, last week we had a big celebration and we celebrated the coming of the Holy Spirit at Pentecost. We had 18 new members join, and kind of an exciting time in the life of our church as we see the church growing. And it's holiday weekend, so don't get too upset about today's attendance. But as we see the church growing and moving forward, it's a powerful thing. And we believe that's because of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit was sent by God so that the church would then grow and be empowered. That happened on Pentecost. We talked about that. Today's text is kind of a flashback. How many of you have ever watched the show The Human Target? Anybody? Two of us. All right, 3 or 4. Okay, well, The Human Target is a show that's out. It just came out this year, I think, for the first time. It had a kind of a short season. I hope they didn't get rid of it because they really liked it. But one of the techniques they use in The Human Target is the flashback. They'll start you off with a really exciting scene of something that's going on where who's ever there is in peril, there's something going to happen to them, and then they'll flash away, and the next scene you look at, the next scene you see is maybe two people talking or whatever, but it's kind of calm, and what they've done, it'll say on the screen 2 days later, or 6 hours before, or not 2 days later, 2 days before, 6 hours, you can't have a flashback for it. 6 hours before, whatever, to let you know that what they're doing is setting for you the context of the scene you just saw. Well, today's text is 54 days earlier. 54 days before Pentecost, Jesus said these words to his disciples. He was promising them the Holy Spirit. We've jumped back and we're getting the context now for what we just celebrated last week. Jesus is telling them that he has many things to say to them. Many things that he wants to tell them, but they can't bear it now. They're not ready. Jesus has pointed to the cross. He's talked about the fact that he's going to die and rise from the dead, and they're just not getting it. And he knows they're not ready yet to hear what else is in store for them, what's going to come after. And so he holds off and he says, but when I go and I send the Spirit of truth to you, the Holy Spirit that will guide you into all truth, he will teach you everything. He will give you all that my Father has. He will give to you. All that is mine, he will give to you. They weren't ready to know that for their faith, they were going to be jailed and beaten. They weren't ready to know that some of the way the church grew was by their blood, their death, their crucifixion themselves. They weren't ready to hear the sacrifices that they were going to have to make in order to follow the teachings of Jesus in a world that was afraid of what Jesus was bringing, afraid of the transformation, the power change, the power struggle that was going to be as the Christian movement doesn't meld well with culture. The Christian movement doesn't meld well with ideologies that are different than it. The response is either an acceptance of it or a complete rejection of it. In our new membership class, we were reading a book by Will Willimon, who's now a bishop of the United Methodist Church. When he wrote that, he was the chaplain at Duke and also a professor at Duke United Methodist Seminary. And he wrote a book called Why I Am a United Methodist. And in that book, he talks about the fact that the Bible is very important to United Methodists. It's our guidebook. And Wesley was a man of one book, he said, and by that he meant the Bible. But he said the Bible is not so much a signpost at an intersection that points the way. He says the Bible is a collision in the intersection. When you read the Bible, it collides with the thoughts you already have. It confronts you. Jesus knew that they weren't ready for what they were going to have to face in the world as their new lives as followers of Jesus Christ were colliding with the lives of the Romans. for when the Spirit comes, for Pentecost that comes 54 days after he makes this speech. It kind of reminds me of my call to ministry. I can remember my call to ministry like it was yesterday. So I'll try not to keep on getting my nose. I don't know. I just want to make sure I make the points I want to tell you about my call to ministry. I was 25 years old. I had been married for 5 years. We had our 2 girls already. We had just bought our first real house. Our first not real house that we lived in for almost a year was a 21-foot travel trailer. Don't try that at home, by the way. And then we moved into this huge, I mean, it was a spacious 51 by 10 foot wide mobile home before we were able to afford our first house. But we had just bought this house. Linda's parents had moved up to central Pennsylvania, and we were up there visiting that Easter. So, been out of school for 5 years, married for 5 years, 2 kids, just bought a house. We're at the worship service on Easter, and the pastor gives the strangest message I've ever heard on an Easter Sunday. Now, of course, I don't listen to my own, so.